Hi everyone, welcome to Technique Tuesday, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite techniques from each of these three fairly new paintings. This one will be a tutorial. These two, as of this recording, are up on my online school as full start to finish real-time tutorials. Some parts of these are even slowed down and they're ad-free with full voiceover, line drawings, reference photos, all the good stuff. Supply list. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in learning how I painted these and over 200 other tutorials. But before we get started, my name is Rachel Parker Varner. I like to teach not just the how but the why of watercolor so you move along your painting journey a lot faster. And you can join my online communities for free. We have a great time there. One is facebook.com/groups/Rachel's Watercolor Workshop. You can upload your paintings there. You can ask for advice or just share. Same thing on Patreon. Patreon.com/RachelStudio/chats is another place. Even if you're a free member, you can upload your paintings there and get ideas on how to improve or just share. All right, let's look at this first painting of the spoonbill. What I want you to notice in the spoonbill is the values, not the colors. See, the colors are really screaming in this painting. They're bright, they're bold, but it is the values that is holding this together. The darks against the light neck of the bird. The gray light background pushes back into the background. The values are doing that job of pushing everything back into the background for these elements. For the tree, this is in the midground, so it's a medium value. So the values are telling the story of distance in this painting. Values also tell the story of where there's bold contrast, where to look. Values tell the story of contours and the 3D nature of the animal a lot of times. So values do all the hard work and the colors are stealing the glory. And so for this first technique, what we're going to really focus on is something that I learned that really improved my art so much. And that was to learn that if I'm working in an area that has all the same value, if I want to make it look a lot more interesting, keep it all the same value, like keep this tree all medium values, but put a lot of different colors in it. And specifically make some warmer and some cooler. Some warmer, like think yellow, think the sun. Some cooler, think blue, think ice. So as we move around this tree, some of the colors are brighter, some are grayer, some are cooler, and some are warmer. So let's take a look at the footage of me painting this tree, and I'm going to show you how I keep the value pretty much the same, but the colors change as we go around the tree. Here we go. All right, some of this will go off camera, but it will be fixed in 1 second. Just hang tight. But I do want to show you this footage right here because I'm painting the trunk. And look, I made it gray. And gray is a good color to have here and there in your colorful paintings because they provide a nice contrast to the colors and they will make your colors look brighter. So I painted the trunk with a straight gray, and now I'm painting some fronds with a dark green, probably mixed from a mix of my 10 colors that I always use: permanent green light with French ultramarine with maybe some pyrrole orange or some red to gray it down a little. This tree is in the background, so we don't want it screaming colors. We want it muted colors. So we use all three primaries in the mix in varying levels of ratios. So in this paint stroke, you can see that I'm using mostly permanent green light. And then I add another brush stroke with more yellow. My favorite is Holbein Aureolin. There's definitely a little tiny bit of orange in my mix because it's a grayed down green. And as I move around the tree, I keep changing my colors slightly. If you study Charles Reed's work, you will notice this about his trees. So here's a slightly different green. I've added more blue to it, probably more French ultramarine. And there goes a bunch more French ultramarine, and I drop it into my wet paint, which you can do that too to change the colors. In anything that's wet, you can drop in colors to add variety. And then here comes some pure Daniel Smith permanent green light here and there. And I'm just adding it to what I already have and letting it all melt together. And that makes for a lot more interesting tree. And another way to look at the colors in this tree is that they are a balance of warms versus cools. And here goes in some burnt sienna, which is a very warm color compared to the rest of the colors that I used in the tree. And that makes those greens, the bright permanent green light, especially in the tree, really sing, because there's cools like blues, think blues and greens, dancing with the warms, think oranges and yellows. And then here I go in with some gray in the painting because one, it's far back in space, and so gray recedes and it's lighter. But also this gray is playing a role of being a contrast to the more colorful, bright colors in the bird and even some bright colors in the tree. Although I tried to keep the tree as muted as possible because the bird, this roseate spoonbill, is the star of the show. All right, let's look at the next painting. The next painting is going to be the raven. This is 3 crows short of a murder because this is a raven. And a group of raven is called an unkindness. Did you know that? So I didn't know of a clever name to use the word unkindness, so I called it 3 crows short of a murder because there's no crows here. It's a raven. Anyway, all right, so I see people saying this all the time. Why do people like spatter so much? Ugh, I hate spatter. So this tip is, I've thought about this a lot because if I'm going to use spatter in my work, I really should know why, right? So we're going to talk about the why and the how for this one. And the why of spatter is because when you have a few different textures in a painting, it adds interest. And especially in the area of interest, which for me is this eye area, to add little spatters in the eye area tells the viewer this is where the most interesting things are happening. This is where to look. It helps the viewer move through the painting and come back to the spatter. Now, what if I would have spattered everywhere? It would have detracted from this painting. It would have been too busy. It's like the video I made about jewelry. You don't want too much. You don't want too little. Same thing with spatter when you use it. You don't want too much. You don't want too little. And remember the rule about values, where values do all the hard work and color steals the glory? Same thing with spatter. You want to think about the values you're making your spatter. Close into the eye, I made the spatter darker and heavier. And there is spatter out here, but it's a lot more delicate and lighter, meaning I added more water to it. So the job the spatter is doing in this painting is that it's drawing the viewer's eye to the area of interest in this painting, and it's adding textural interest. So the spatter is a different texture than all the other textures that I used in this painting. And I should say also, there's a couple other ways that you can spatter. You can spatter, I learned this awesome one from Diane Zimmerman. You take a sieve. So you use a sieve like this and you can paint your paint like milk consistency here, and then you take a straw and you blow onto your painting, and it keeps the spatter more where you want it. So I love that little Diane Zimmerman hack. She has an amazing group on Facebook. It's called Watercolor Beginners and Beyond. There's also spray bottles that you can put paint in and spray on spatter. So that's really fun for trees. And another way that you can spatter is you can take a toothbrush, you can get your paint about milk consistency, dip your toothbrush in the paint, and then rub your finger across the top of the bristles, and it'll make a really fine spatter. It's like good for sand and things like that. So there's lots of different ways to spatter. You can have an edge like this and flick your brush off the edge of it, and that'll make a cool spatter. There's so many different ways to do it. But anyway, let's take a look at this footage. Here we go. And so now I'm gonna bring out the big guns. So I'm gonna cover up my work so that I can get a good strong spatter effect without getting a bunch of spatter everywhere else. So I'm just covering up my painting where I don't want the spatter to go with a piece of watercolor paper, whatever, a piece of mail, and then getting fairly thick paint that will dry pretty dark. You remember, the less water you add to your paint, the darker it will dry. And I want some fairly bold spatter right by the eye. And I put that on, and I think it adds a really nice finishing look to that area of the painting. All right, are you ready for the final tip? We're going to talk about this dog and how even though I have all these colors going on, somehow it all pulls together. So let's look at the footage of how I painted this rainbow Labrador Retriever. This is Belle, by the way, and I will show you a couple tricks on how to be successful with painting with a lot of colors. Hint, yes, it does have to do with using values correctly. Here we go. All right, next we're going to look at a painting that a lot of my online students are really excited about. This tutorial will be coming out in a week or two of this rainbow Labrador. I think it's really hard for beginner and intermediate artists to depart from reality and, for example, paint a rainbow color on an animal or a flower or whatever. But as long as you get your values right, the colors aren't going to matter. So I'm going to walk you through my thought process in painting the rainbow part of this Labrador, and also what I did to pull it together at the end to make it all hang together. So I got my whole Labrador wet, not puddling. So if you put a bunch of water on your paper, wherever there's water, the paint will flow. And I like to do that for a rainbow effect because then the paint colors can just mix on the paper. So here goes in some cobalt blue. And I was imagining that this side of the dog's muzzle would be in a cooler shadow. The dog's nose is quite warm, so I played that up with some Daniel Smith transparent pyrrole orange. And I'm letting all the colors do what they want, run together. And by the way, I choose cobalt because it granulates. So what happens is that when it's granulating, it mixes with the other colors and they all mix together. And then the blues granulate out from the finer grained paint like the orange. And it has a really pretty opalescent effect. So that's why I include a granulating paint in my paint palette when I'm painting like this. And then this purple is mixed from the cobalt blue that I used and M. Graham Naphthol red. So it hangs together better. And then this paint color is a gorgeous color. I believe it's PB36, but it is a paint color that comes on the Paul Rubens floral palette, which I really like because there's several colors on there I love, like this bright green and this turquoise color. PB36, I believe, is the pigment that was in the now discontinued turquoise color that Cheap Joe's used to make. And I think it was called Andrew's Turquoise, but it's available on this Paul Rubens palette. I will put a link in the comments to this palette. I love it. It's a great way to spend $50 and get a bunch of gorgeous colors. But one thing I want you to remember when you're painting a rainbow like this, you want to still limit it to maybe 6 or 7 colors and then disperse them throughout the painting so it's balanced. You don't want it to look too gaudy. If you use like 20 colors for your rainbow, it's going to look too gaudy. So it'll look a lot better if you use even a more limited palette than I did and then mix all your colors from those so they all hang together. Now, what I'm going to do next with this dog is let it completely dry. And you can have a hot mess, but if you have the values correct, you can make your painting pull together. So after all this dries, don't be scared, let it dry. Give your painting a chance and do the second stage, which is putting in your darks. And if you have some nice, well-placed darks and your drawing is accurate and your values are accurate, 9 times out of 10, you can pull this rainbow effect off by pulling it together with the darks. So I put in the darks of the ear, the darks of the eye, the dark nostril, and that helps pull this painting together and make it look cohesive and visually pleasing. When you join my online school and you join a paid tier, you get access to an instant access to almost 200 tutorials. I recommend that you join the $13 tier, because those are the tutorials that I have put extra information in, extra demonstration, extra explanation. So you learn not just the how, but the why of watercolor. So you can take those principles and then apply them to whatever you want to paint. And I've had people say, you're right. I am not into painting cats, but I watched one of your cat tutorials and I learned so much that I could apply to what I like to paint. And that's how I design my tutorials. I also leave my mistakes in so that you can learn fixing techniques, because listen, especially if you want to be a loose painterly watercolorist, watercolor painting is a series of fixing mistakes. And so I leave those parts of my painting process, which is a natural part of the creative process, is experimenting, making a mess, sometimes making an ugly painting, making mistakes, and then figuring out how to fix it. And 8 times out of 10, I would say, I am able to fix it. And I leave all that in my tutorials so you can learn for yourself how to massage your paintings in the direction you want them to go. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, leave me a like, leave me a comment. Check out the pinned comment below where I will link some free things. You can join my Patreon for free. You can join my Facebook for free. Same thing on Patreon. Patreon.com/RachelStudio/chats is another place. Even if you're a free member, you can upload your paintings there and get ideas on how to improve or just share. And it's really fun. We learn a lot from each other. So I encourage you to join my online communities, and be sure to give this video a like and go binge more of my content, because the algorithm likes that best when you go and look at my other videos. I have a ton of good videos. I will link a few that have been very popular in the pinned comment, along with some free stuff and the links I talked about and my supply list. So be sure to check out the pinned comment below. And until next time, go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody.